This is my legacy. In this week's bonus drop, CNN legal analyst and anchor Laura Coates and her father, Dr. Norman Coates, look back on the wisdom he passed down to question everything and never let anyone else define who she is. It's an honest and inspiring conversation about truth, trust, and raising daughters who never back down. Let's jump in.
You know, Laura, you've talked about how your father taught you to question everything and accept nothing at face value. So, can you share a moment from your childhood when he pushed you to challenge something you were told to just accept?
That is a very interesting question because you're right that my father is somebody who wanted me to be discerning. He wanted me to question the world not from a place of pessimism, but from a place of pure curiosity. And that required open-mindedness, and it also required me to have a healthy level of skepticism to protect, what people may not realize is a very sensitive core. I was bullied a great deal throughout my childhood. One of the reasons is because I was exactly the same person I am now when I was a child. And people often questioned why I wouldn't just try to fit in or go along to get along. They would question the way I spoke. They would question my blackness. They would question a whole host of things. And I remember the big challenge my father always had for me was um, to be refusing to accept somebody else's imposition of an identity on me and to question what the quote unquote I perceived as a young girl were the masses' thoughts about me. Because when you're young, your perspective is totally gone. You have total nearsightedness, and you assume that whatever more than one person's saying, gosh, it must be true about you. And you could fall into the trap of questioning yourself. And so, um, by simply instilling a quality in me that said, you know what, do you like yourself? Do you like who you are? And making sure that's enough. Now, that was challenging because sometimes it could be grades, right? I happen to have been a great student, but he would assign the same level of weight and attention to an A or less than, to a compliment or an insult about his children, because he wanted us to be challenged to know that what others thought of us should not dictate how we thought of ourselves. And whether it was, you're so pretty, or you're so ugly, or you're so whatever, or whatever it is, that was a challenge. I got to tell you, that has stuck with me, particularly in a world like this where I'm constantly under scrutiny and where social media has entered for so many people as an excuse to doubt oneself.
She's 100% accurate when she details what my thoughts were on grades and what other people think of her. And I think she carries that, she's in the public eye right now. And so there's a lot of scrutiny on her, from ratings to people critiquing the show to people who write into her. And I think that the way that she was brought up helps to give her strength in terms of dealing with what other people think of her in terms of what she thinks of herself. So that's really important.
Mm, insightful.
Well, Norman, we then need some parenting advice from both of you. So, Laura, first to you, because I love the fact that your children give you hope. And we're all parents around the table here, and our children give us hope. But how and what type of conversations are you having with them about what's going on right now, ranging from, mental health all the way down to what's happening in the world? How do you have conversations with them in the most touching, loving way?
It's interesting that you say mental health because that's a conversation I frequently have with my kids. A phrase that I don't remember being a big part of my generation's childhood and thinking about that at all. But I often speak to them as what some might call check-ins in terms of how they are feeling about the times we're in. What are they hearing? What are their friends saying? But the reason I do is because I am constantly, as my mother always says, in awe of what comes out of the mouths of babes and how much they really are seeing and how much they really want to say. They may not be able to articulate it in the way that an adult does, but that's almost a good thing because they're unencumbered by feeling self-conscious about saying the right thing. And I get an unvarnished truth from them about where they see and what they do. And so questions like when they watch something that's horrible, whether it's officer-involved violence or otherwise, or school shootings. Mommy, will that happen to me? And I find myself being a confessional parent with exploring with them what it means when I don't know the answer and how they can create the answers by their own power. If I don't know, I don't know, but I will take you by the hand and learn with you. If my instinct is stronger than my intellect, I will share that and protect you. If my love for you requires me to let something happen to or for you, those are the hardest moments. And that's when I usually am calling my parents, like gushing with
The
them,
love and
asking for
logic
guidance,
course.
right?
Love and logic, yeah.
Asking for all of it. So I'm just trying, as all of us are. I think we can all agree. We hope that we are doing right by our children by allowing them to keep their eyes open.
Love that. And Norman, you're obviously a remarkable father. You have 3 amazing girls. I have 2. From one girl dad to another, what's your best advice for raising amazing ladies?
My best advice for raising amazing ladies is to enjoy them until they meet boys.
And then what happens?
And then you've got to be vigilant. No, seriously. It comes down to establishing trust. I think what you do, actually what I do, I can't tell you how to be an amazing parent because I don't know that I am one. But what I did try to do was establish contracts with my daughters that if you say you're going to do this, then I would expect that you would do this because it comes really down to trust. And if I say I'm going to do something, then you can take it to the bank that I'm actually going to do it. So with my daughters, I always said, you got to come in at 11:30, 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock, whatever it was I said. And they were really, really good about meeting that particular contract. I thought maybe that's why they became lawyers. I never thought about that. But anyway, they always try to meet that contract because it really is about trust. You don't have to check on them. You don't have to listen to their phone calls. You don't have to follow them. You don't have to interrogate whoever they're going out with. You just have to establish trust with them. That's just one person between you and me. We have a contract.
That trust is transferable in other areas. I look at that because it wasn't just a curfew. It was, you know, your responsibility was school. Your responsibility was to be a person of integrity. I understand you to be that person, and that was our contract as well, to uphold the moral compass directionally that we as a family established. That was, just as you could take it to the bank that we would be the people we ought to be. We knew that you all were those people as well. You also have to add in a little bit of crazy because that really will add to the perfect mix. Like if you know your parents are a little bit
Yes.
crazy, you're gonna uphold that contract.
There's this skit that my sister shared with me, and they said that you have to show your kids 3 times that you are really crazy. Like once when they're really little, once when they're preteen, and then once when they're teenage. Like they just really, and then after that but they have to really think you're really crazy. Just 3 times.
That's hilarious.
Norman, I like with the utmost of respect, I have to disagree with you. I think you're an amazing dad.
Yeah, thank you.
Laura, you are such an impressive human being, and not only as fans of your show, but just as a person. And obviously you went to Princeton, then you went to law school, and you decided to become a prosecutor, and not just any prosecutor, specifically in the Civil Rights Division in the Department of Justice. So what impacted that decision?
I actually started out in private practice in Minneapolis and in New York, where I was doing First Amendment and defamation and media and intellectual property litigation. Loved that work, loved the mentors I had, who looked out for me, those who didn't look like me but saw themselves in me, and were willing to give me a chance um, at learning. And I loved the work, but I didn't have the fire in my belly that I had for civil rights in that sort of work. My mom grew up with her parents who moved from Fayetteville, North Carolina, up to Stamford, Connecticut, where they were domestic workers for companies that would eventually become my clients at firms. the DuPonts, the Mercks, you name it. My grandfather was a chauffeur, my grandmother, domestic, and actually it was the Mercks who went on to fund my two uncles' medical school tuitions. And so I carry into any room, like Maya Angelou once said in a graduation speech, you don't walk into a room as yourself. You walk into the room and you invite your ancestors with you. You invite their stories with you. So when I walked into the practice of law, I was saying, come on, grandma, come on, grandpa, come on, aunts, come on, sisters, come on, friends, come on, all who have loved me or who have wanted more for themselves, come with me. And for me, that led me to civil rights work and the voting rights section specifically, which happened to be the topic of my senior thesis at Princeton. It was about ending felon disenfranchisement. I viewed it as one of the last vestiges of the Southern redemption strategy and trying to exploit the 13th Amendment to oppress a group of people to do an end run around voting rights in this country. So when I had the opportunity to even be interviewed with the Department of Justice, I brought those who loved me with me and channeling the truth, which was interviewing in J. Edgar Hoover's office, which was now the Civil Rights Division. Can you imagine
that's
the irony
fascinating.
and yeah, you were smiling. I know, Mr. King, because you know the irony of that, of being in that room. Now, granted, when I interviewed that day, I had broken my heel, and sis, you know what this is like. The metal part is like scraping the marble floor. I'm making quite a ruckus as I walk into the building on this
Oh,
very
yeah.
notion. But that was the fire in my belly to do that work and monitor elections and work on policy. But then I had an even stronger belly as well to understand what justice was like on the front lines, and went to then become a trial attorney, federal prosecutor, prosecuting violent crimes, sex offenses on behalf of children, on behalf of those who didn't have a voice, violent drug offenses, and beyond. And I found the work equal parts rewarding and devastating, because there is nothing like seeing the power of an individual person wielded against the masses in any capacity, whether it was for the righteous reasons or whether it was because you could. And when I had my children, and there was happening in the world, whether it was the killing of Mike Brown or Trayvon Martin or officer-involved shootings or what was happening at Sandy Hook. Um, the list goes on, voting suppression activities. And I thought, I've got to take off a muzzle that you have to have if you're working in those fields, and speak truth to power, but also help people understand what that truth was. But I had nothing in the way of experience in journalism. I didn't know a single soul. I knew who Wolf Blitzer was, but I'd watched him, but I didn't know anything about it. And I parked myself after leaving. I parked myself in a Panera Bread and began with my laptop and my nursing daughter to figure out how I could write my way into the spaces that I thought needed to understand what truth was. And for me, it is trying to have information as advocacy and destroy the elitism that says only a few get to know the truth, and then they get to decide what's the life for everyone else. But I have to just reiterate this. I don't want to be unsaid by either my father or I. Um, there is no legacy at all in America, let alone Black America, that does not have your father-in-law, your father, as an inspiration. There's not one. There's not a single moment I think any of us can reference where we don't go back and say, well, I can, I must, and I will, because of what he endured. I mean, Daddy, you went down to Atlanta, and I remember you telling me to go visiting the center, which I've now been to, obviously. And you said what brought tears to your eyes or walked us
Yes.
through. Do you remember that into the number of times
By the number.
gone to jail?
Yeah.
Just, I mean, just that. I mean, he called me emotional about that. We were all on a conference call together because he wanted to share it as at once, like, all the children and his wife, of course, about what that was like to just see. Do you have any idea what this man had been through? And you had lived through the era and just seeing it up there. I mean,
Well, 20, 29 times arrested, and some say 30, but 29 times arrested, sitting in a jail cell, one time being sentenced to 4 months of hard labor while I'm playing soccer on a field, and he was he's like the domino, you could think of Mahatma Gandhi, and then the dominoes start to fall, and then you've got Martin Luther King and and Nelson Mandela and everyone else until we get to the CRA 1964. And then we have Title VI and we have fair housing, all of which Martin Luther King was instrumental in making sure it got passed. And, outlawing redlining, realty redlining, as well as neighborhood provenances so that people couldn't live in certain areas. That can be traced back to MLK. And even Title IX and the ADA and gay rights, discriminating against people based on their sexual orientation, all go back to that CRA. Although there were different laws that were passed because of them, but it still starts with the argument that you cannot discriminate against people no matter who they are. And I think he said in his letter from Birmingham that injustice for one is injustice for all. And that, again, part of the Martin Luther King legacy. And even as far as the fact that University of Alabama can call themselves a football powerhouse, still goes back to MLK, because you wouldn't have those athletes in that school if he hadn't fought for the right for them to be there. So I agree with Laura that MLK's legacy is one that you should always be proud of, that we should always bring up, and we should always remember.
Mm-hmm. And that's why we also are very passionate about having everyone see themselves as part of the King legacy, and to see what our role is in creating that beloved community. That's one of the reasons that collectively the four of us have the Realize the Dream initiative, of which we want to have 100 million hours of service completed across this country by Martin Luther King's Jr.'s 100th birthday. We believe now is our turn, each of us, our turn in that long walk towards freedom.
Well, I've heard you speak many times. The part of the reason why this work, Realize the Dream, is so important is because America is at one of the great inflection moments since the days of Dr. King. Mm-hmm. And when we look, Laura, at the work that you do, this is a very complicated time. This is a very politicized time. This is a time where people, even when you look at your old employer, the Department of Justice, question whether justice can truly be blind, and people are losing faith in institutions. And so what do you say to those individuals who question, can people truly receive free and fair and equal justice today?
My answer might surprise you, because I am happy that people are asking and questioning the institutions that we have believed are at their peak. I am glad that people are questioning, because it means that they know the work still needs to be done. So often we hear about the civil rights era as if there was a beginning and there was an end and the work is complete. But it really is a continuum. It really is something that needs to consistently be worked on. I mean, it is a work in progress, because human nature is in progress. And if we treat it as if the work is done, we get complacent, and then we realize that the same ills of society that sparked the movements to begin with will rear their heads again. And so I really think that this is the time to be alive. And I don't mean just existing. I mean alive and active and questioning and continuing to shape the world we want to live in. So as difficult as this time is, it is a reminder not to be complacent. It is a reminder not to stop trying. And it is a reminder that it's only a republic if we can keep it. It's only a civil right if we are civil. And it's only a right if we demand that they exist. And so it's taxing. It's wearing on all of us. I mean, I'm going to send a bill to someone for my hair color at some point, whoever that might be. But in the meantime, I'm going to welcome the fight so that another generation won't have the same one. Because I do feel guilt. I think we all feel guilt. Different generations feel guilt that came after the great leaders of, whether it's Thurgood Marshall or Charles Hamilton Houston or Martin Luther King Jr. There is some guilt about how quickly some things have unraveled. And I do wonder if that guilt can fuel people's refusal to be complacent and say, hold on, not on my watch. Not on my watch.
Thank you for joining us. New episodes drop every Tuesday, with bonus content every Thursday. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a moment.